Welcome back. So, did you get all of the details there? There's so much information. There's a donation link. There was how to win free books. There was also details about next month's exciting event with Anna Bailey, SJ Watson, and Leah Middleton. So exciting. Anyway, now it's time for the main event. I'm just going to introduce our wonderful guests and then we'll get cracking with Beyond Writing. Our first guest is Rob Parker. He's a married father of 3 who lives in Warrington. He's the author of the Ben Bracken thrillers, and I call it Crooks Hollow, but I've been reliably informed it should be Crookshollow. Depends on how you pronounce that, I guess. Rob enjoys rural life, writing horrible things between school runs, and he boxes regularly for charity as well. Basically, the man's a saint. I don't think he must ever sleep, but he's a good guy. Rob is 1/3 of the Blood Brothers crime podcast, For Your Reconsideration film podcast, and he's also a member of, I'm really sorry about this, Rob, what's your James Bond podcast called?
It's that's the point where you say, like, it's not my James Bond podcast, no, I'm a regular gob on the Really 007 podcast.
There you go. There's just so many of them I can't keep track. Rob is also a member of the Northern Crime Syndicate. We'll be coming to that in a moment. But our next guest is Leslie Cara. She's an alum of the Faber Academy Writing a Novel course. She's the author of 2 Sunday Times bestsellers, The Rumour and Who Did You Tell? The Rumour was one of my favourite books, I think of 2018, 19, probably 19 wouldn't it have been, Leslie, yeah. And was the highest selling crime fiction debut of 2019, as well as a Kindle #1 bestseller. Woo! It has now sold in over 18 territories. Leslie's most recent novel, The Dare, is out now. Leslie also enjoys co-hosting the In Suspense podcast with fellow author Lauren North. So I'll tell you about Lauren now. Lauren writes psychological suspense novels that delve into the darker side of relationships and families. She has a lifelong passion for writing, reading, and all things books, so she'll fit in well here. Lauren's love of psychological suspense has grown since childhood, and her dark imagination of always wondering what's the worst thing that could possibly happen in every situation. I'm with you, Lauren. In her spare time, Lauren co-hosts In Suspense, which is not only a podcast, but also a vodcast. So we'll be coming to that in a second, because I don't think it means that you drink vodka while you're podcasting. I just want clarification.
I wish.
Lauren is a self-confessed workaholic, but she does enjoy running and playing competitive board games with her children. On that note, Lauren, do you ever let your children win, or do they have to actually win?
No, not only do I not let them win, I'm just going to check I'm not being listened to, but I also cheat horribly. They've got no chance.
Lauren, you heard it here first.
I know, I'm sorry, but I'm a winning, I'm a winner, whatever.
Well, there we go, straight in there.
Exclusives already tonight, Ray.
That wasn't what I was expecting, to be fair. So I'm going to ask you first of all, and I'll go to Leslie. Leslie, how did you get, I know you went to the Faber Academy, how did you decide you wanted to write? How did you get into writing?
Oh, well, I've always wanted to write. I always have written, used to write short stories, poems and things when I was a child. And in my 20s and 30s, I dreamed of being a writer. For some strange reason, I never thought it was a possibility. I suppose I, let work commitments and family commitments sort of take precedence, and writing always sort of got squeezed into the space that was left. And it wasn't really until I was in my 40s, I'd got quite a sort of high-powered job in a college of further education. I was a director of quality, but I'd been quite ill. I'd suffered for many years with endometriosis, and I'd had a lot of operations. I became quite depressed, and I had time off work. And it was while I was recuperating and I had time to just sort of be, I started writing again, and I realised that that's what I really wanted to do, and that I should have prioritised it sooner. And so I applied for the Faber Academy course, and that was a real turning point in my life. And
Oh, that's lovely. Well, it's not lovely to hear you poorly, but it's lovely to hear you with that passion. Lauren, how about you? How did you get started?
It's weird. I don't think there was ever like a point where you start and stop with writing.
Yeah,
I think I just
that's
always
fair.
grew up writing stories. I used to write stories about orphans and kids who could fly, and they'd fly to these houses that their hands would shoot out the walls. So I always had quite a dark imagination. But then I think it all got on the back burner, and I went to university and studied psychology, and then I moved to London and got a job, which is when I realised that 9 to 5 office work didn't suit me at all, and I needed to do something else with my life. So I sneakily started writing when I was supposed to be at work. So I'd get in early at about 8 and then send a couple of emails to look like I was in work, and then just write all day, really, most of the day. I was a terrible employee. So with the competitiveness, I'm not sounding like a very nice person, but I am. And yeah, it just went from there. And then I wrote romances to start with, and then sort of stopped and had 2 kids really close together in age. And then I think it was only when they both went off to preschool and I sort of had this sudden free time, I wanted another baby, but my husband was like, do you remember when you used to write? Go do that. So I then started writing properly, and that's when I sort of went a bit darker as well after that as well. So that's how I got into it.
And Rob, did you used to go and get money for writing at work on someone else's time?
No, I didn't. Although this is very interesting though, because you get asked this question quite a bit. Well, how did you start writing and stuff? And it's the first time I've had a similar answer in the discussion. So I was very much like Leslie. I always wrote when I was younger. Always wanted to tell stories. I didn't really care how they were done. It was always about storytelling for me. And then, so at one point I was a white van guy driving about, and I had, whenever I'd stop, I'd always stop at a particular, the Tesco here in Warrington. I'd stop at the back corner and have a baked potato while writing, sat on the front 3 seats of the thing.
Oh man.
I was playing football at the weekends, and I got injured, and I needed 18 months out of work to have 6 knee surgeries. So I had 3 on my right, 3 on my left, and I was the same, just faced with this like crossroads in life, and this thing behind me saying this could be your opportunity to go for that thing that you've always really, really wanted. You've got the time now. Why don't you apply yourself, and why don't you go for it? And I had the same thing, the spiral. I've never got any shame in telling anybody that I struggled with that, mainly because Jeremy Kyle was still on TV at that point, and in the day that was the thing that was on all the time. And then so I wrote to sort of pull myself back out, and yeah, it was just from there. It was just like, right, this is it. It was like finding the silver lining in the darkness of that, really. So I just like committed from that point, and I dug my heels in, and my heels have been dug in ever since.
And you've never slept since, have you?
No.
Right. So I'm going to get into our more specific stuff about your pod and vodcasts. So Leslie or Lauren, who wants to tell me about a vodcast? Because I guess a lot of our audience will have heard of podcasts, but maybe might not be so familiar with vodcasts. It's not vodka.
Well, I'll leave it to Leslie because she was the inventor of In Suspense.
Well, I don't know about inventor. I always wanted to do a podcast because I love listening to them, and I'd wanted to do one for a while, but not really been brave enough. And then during lockdown, it seemed like a great time to start a podcast because, everybody was stuck at home, obviously. And I knew I wasn't going to do it on my own because I was too nervous and not very good with technology. So I'd already met Lauren. We'd met a couple of times at various book events because we live in the same area. And so we'd met at the Waterstones in Colchester. And so I asked Lauren if she'd be interested in doing a podcast with me. And luckily she said yes. And so then it took us a while, didn't it, to come up with some ideas. And yeah, vodcast. I mean, I don't know why we decided to put it on YouTube as well. I think perhaps we wanted to be YouTube stars and command an audience of millions. I don't know. That didn't happen.
Yet.
Well,
There you go.
I think more people listen to it on audio, don't they, Laurie? I think you have the stats, don't you?
I think it's about about 50-50 actually. We get about
Oh,
half
is
and
it?
half, I think. So yeah, we have to remember, don't we, when we're like holding up books and things, that it's for people who are listening as well. We sometimes get a bit carried away, I think, both of us.
Yes,
So
I did that last time, didn't I? I held up a book and said, I'm reading this at the moment. We had to cut it out because I didn't say the name of the author or the title. So, bit of a disaster.
I'm just reading the chat, and apparently Kate lives in Colchester, and Linda went to uni there. So, Rob, what is your Colchester connection? I don't have one.
I used to be a Stockport County season ticket holder, so I've watched them there against Colchester many times.
There you go.
Oh, claim to fame that.
What a small world.
So actually, talking about editing, is there a lot of editing, Robert? And who does it on you? So we're going to mainly talk about Blood Brothers because it's crime fiction.
Yeah.
But you can mention all of your gajillion others if you want to. But
Well, no, what happened was they realised that I'm happy to talk, and that I have a stupid laugh, and
Yes.
that's why like people like to be on stuff. So I'm the host of a film podcast, For Your Reconsideration, which champions movies that we all secretly love, and we all have them, don't we? You know, so I have an absolute blast doing that. And then it was Sean Coleman who said of Red Dog Press. He said, should we do a crime podcast? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So it was great. But in the editing stakes, when it comes to the Blood Brothers, it's if I make an error, I say I'll edit it. So I do it if I mess up during the record by doing stuff like give away spoilers of the book or mention something that's embargoed during the record, or I'm hopeless for all of this kind of stuff, because I really like, and especially at this time, you know, when we've not really seen each other at all. I mean,
I thought you meant this time of night when you meant.
Oh no,
you know, I've had a few jars, you know.
No. I just mean like I get excited when I see, you know, like when I'm hanging out with people, get really excited. I'm terrible in real life, you know. You're all in for a massive shock when we get out into the real world, but like I get so buzzing, and I want to talk about everything, and yeah. So it's if I've made a boo boo, I edit it, but it's sometimes. So me and Sean then really end up splitting it.
Right. And Leslie, you were saying you didn't feel very technologically competent. Lauren, are you?
I've learned to be. I think Leslie and I decided early on that the split would be that she'd focus more on the social media side, and I would therefore take on editing, which I've never done before. My background's public relations, and as I've already mentioned, I was terrible at it. So I just sort of downloaded a couple of different sort of editing things, and just obviously I don't know all the words, and just had a go. So yeah, I subscribed to something called Power Director, and I've learned, basically watched loads of YouTube videos and learned what to do. So yeah, I'm okay at it, I think, but yeah, it depends how bad the boo-boo is to edit out, I think.
As you can see, Vic, it's quite a slick operation, very, very professional.
Really? I mean, I've got to be honest, since I've guested on Blood Brothers a few times, because I apparently am Blood Sister TM. Is that right, Rob?
That's correct, yes.
And yeah, you know, it's like looking behind the curtain and there was divorce, and you're just like, all right, okay, so you literally just have a few drinks, a laugh, and then someone has to just Google some software. No?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, to be honest, we use this thing called Squadcast.
I know.
Well, if you record it on there, we found it, and then the best thing about it is at the end when you record it, it says mix audio, and it just puts it all together, and we go like, oh wow, really? It's like you know, it's a bit like magic. I still have to go through it though and find my boo-boos, but at least it's all there in one place that I can work with.
I have also heard Sean Coleman say previously, because I once complained, probably about this time last year, that I used to listen to podcasts on my, you know, at the beginning of lockdown when you had a daily walk. That fell by the wayside. But yeah, I used to listen to my podcasts. And I was walking along, my son was like 8 months old, and Rob Parker laughed really loudly on Blood Brothers and woke my son up. So I complained, but not really complained, just was a bit mean about it. And Sean Coleman said, and that's after I actually reduced the volume on his laugh. So
They apply a filter for me.
Anyway,
This is what I'm
Chris
dealing with.
McDonald, another blood brother, says, you should see what Lauren can knock up when she has a few hours on her hands. Lauren, can you elaborate? Because I'm a bit worried.
Yes, I can. It's really not that bad. Chris put something on Twitter asking if anybody would put a video together for his kids' class. He teaches year 4 children. And I happened to have handed my book to my agent and had sort of a free couple of hours. So I explained how I really like in detective novels red herrings. But in order to explain this, I created the mystery of the stolen breakfast using my dog and a guinea pig and edited it together. So it was really, really poor. But just I had some time on my hands. I'm sorry,
Chris says it was incredible. So you say it was poor, he says incredible. I would like you to send him
It really
file
wasn't.
immediately and we can all judge.
He texts me immediately to say how great it was.
I'm sure it'll be on Twitter at some point and I'll be very embarrassed.
Right, quick fire questions for the three of you. Leslie, best thing about podcasting?
Oh, the best thing is getting lovely feedback from viewers and listeners and meeting authors.
Rob?
Meeting authors is amazing, yeah, and hanging out with people that get it, that get the author thing. It's great.
Lauren?
Oh, I think the connection and just hanging out with Leslie and just feeling like you're part of something bigger than just sitting at your desk all the time.
That's really lovely. I must remind, because I forgot to tell people, that we have a Q&A facility somewhere along the bottom of your screen, or if it says more, there is a Q&A facility. So if you have any questions for our writers, it can be about their work, it can be about pod vodcasting, anything you'd like to know, as long as it's clean and inoffensive, please drop it in the Q&As and I will endeavour to ask. Right, worst thing about pod vodcasting. Lauren?
The worst thing is I'm constantly feeling like I'm going to forget when they are and where I'm supposed to be, so that I'm always constantly having to check my phone and triple check emails. So it's having to be somewhere when you're so used in lockdown and being a writer, just be able to do what you like. So that's for me the worst bit.
Rob, do you ever have moments like that where you forget where you're meant to be?
Yes, regularly, and sometimes, as we've learned tonight, I appear when I'm not supposed to. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Rob, worst thing about podcasting.
I think it's because it's the timing of when we have to do it. So we always do it in the evening, but because of the guests we have on, it's usually about this time, this kind of thing. So my kids call it, grudgingly, they call it plopcasting. Like, are you plopcasting again tonight, Daddy? And then it's like, yeah, and then that means that I don't see them for bedtime and that kind of thing.
Oh, well, now I feel bad for taking you away from them.
I'm having a very nice evening. Thank you.
Leslie, worst thing?
Worst thing, I think hearing yourself back sometimes, and I tend to listen to podcasts at night in bed. I have my earphones on and I obviously don't listen to myself, but I listen to it, and sometimes what happens is they play on a loop and they play the next one that's available on the next one that I've subscribed to. So sometimes I wake up listening to myself wittering on about nonsense and I think, oh my God.
Oh, I don't need that. I do have to ask Leslie and Lauren, because you're vodcasting, do you do your hair and your makeup before you do it or not?
Of course.
Yes.
I mean,
This is the look.
Well, yes. That's why I'm asking, because it sounds like a lot of effort.
Well, if
The only time I put my makeup on.
Also fair.
If I didn't put my makeup on and do my hair, my hair would be out here. It's very wild. So yeah, I do need to straighten it. So I mean that I kind of envy men sometimes, because they just pull on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and comb through the hair and they're good to go.
We spent hours getting ready.
I did. I got when I came down, the kids were like, "You dolled up."
I take it all back.
Good on, Dad. Favourite podcast moment to date? Who wants to go first?
Who's going first?
Who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first.
Well, then.
My favourite moment is my favourite moments are when we mess up, Leslie, and we always have such a laugh thinking about how we're going to have to cut it or leave it in. And for me, I think it's the fun that we have that is my favourite moments.
Yes, and Laurie very kindly put that on Twitter the other week when I messed up, because I just forgot the name of the podcast. I said, welcome to, and then just froze, didn't I?
Rob?
And I think my favourite moment is when you know, something accidentally amazing happens out of it. And the one that springs to mind is we always look at what the critical fraternity talk about the films that we review in the film podcast. And there's one particular reviewer for the San Francisco Chronicle, I think it is. And we just followed him because we thought his reviews were great, and he wasn't very, he didn't take himself too seriously. And it became a thing. Like one of the intros, I did an R&B song about him. That was one of the intros that we did to one of the episodes. And he got in touch and said how much he loved the podcast. That was just like, it was one of those, it's like a transcendent kind of thing, It was really ace, really good. And it was a ray of sunshine hearing from him.
Oh.
I was just going to say one of my favourite moments was when we had Simon Kernick on. Do you remember, Laurie? And he was telling us about it wasn't a favourite moment, but it was a shocking moment when he sort of was telling us about a terrifying abduction that he'd had, and neither of us were prepared for that. So that made really good made a really good show, didn't it? Because we were just totally unprepared for it.
Really shocking.
It was shocking. Yeah. Absolutely shocking.
Can I tell you my favourite thing of when I've done podcasts, mainly with Rob? When you get the gossip off air. Oh, who's a swine? Who's not a swine? I love the goss. I'm terrible for it.
Well, Laurie and I don't gossip, do we, Laurie?
We're too professional.
We couldn't comment on that. Couldn't possibly.
Absolutely. Rob and I do have a saying that I shan't repeat on air about how professional I am. It's not. So anyway, Leslie, you said you listen to other podcasts. Is it all book related, or do you listen to a wide variety?
I do listen to a wide variety. If I'm feeling in an intellectual mood, which does happen very occasionally, I like to listen to the Penguin podcast with Nihal Athanayake. He sort of gets people to come and bring certain objects on and discuss them, and builds a sort of narrative, discussion rather around those. That's really interesting. And I like Philippa's quick book reviews and the writer's routine. And but I also listen to lots of podcasts. I love listening to Fortunately with Fee Glover and I can't think of the name, it's gone. Garvey.
Yes, Jane Garvey.
Jane Garvey and Fee Glover and Older and Wider. So yeah, lots of different ones really. On The Shift, I love The Shift with Sam Baker as well. For women of a certain age, so you may well not have come across that one, but that's brilliant.
Well, I do like Fortunately. It makes me laugh because you two have got a similar vibe because you can tell they're friends.
Yes, you really can. They're very close. Yeah. Well, I hope Laurie and I have that vibe.
Oh, you do.
Oh, definitely.
We get on really well, don't we, Laurie? So I hope that comes across.
Oh yeah.
Do you two, Rob and Lauren, listen to other podcasts?
Yeah, go for it, Lauren.
Yes, so I listen to Blood Brothers podcast. I put a comment in saying it always makes me LOL when I'm on my dog walks. And I also heard my name mentioned once, and I was like, oh, hi! And obviously, I was talking to myself. So I think I'm known as like the village natter when I listen to that, because people just look at me talking and laughing. But I really like Honest Authors podcast as well. I think I learned a lot from that one, and still do. And Philippa's quick book reviews, but mostly only books, I would say. I don't listen to podcasts outside of books. It's all the books. What about you, Rob?
The In Suspense podcast, obviously, and I say obviously the rapport though is a genuine thing between you both. It's lovely. It's like, because you feel like you want to chip in. You know what I mean? Like when you're in a public setting, you feel like, in a pub, that's what I'm trying to say. You feel like you want to chip in and get involved. But I like listening to stuff about weird things. So anyone who will have read Blackstoke will probably know that. But at the minute, I'm really enjoying Weird Norfolk. which is about Laura, stop. But Weird Norfolk is it's about the sort of like the paranormal writers for the Eastern Daily Press, who write about, like, you know, stuffed sheep's heads that pub owners couldn't get rid of. Like, they threw them in the river and it just kept reappearing and stuff like that. Like, I just love mad stuff like that. And it's like 15 minutes of, you know, like you walking a dog. Again, it's the dog walk. The dog walk is the best place for a podcast. It's like a little hit of something that you're secretly really into, and it's perfect for that.
We're getting lots of different podcasts mentioned in the chat that I actually haven't listened to. So this is
well, obviously the one that started me off really listening was Two Crime Writers and a Microphone, and they're just hilarious. They're not doing so many now because they're doing lots of other things, aren't they? Festivals and things, but that's how I started. And Blood Brothers has sort of taken over in my, you know, because you're the next sort of funny one that I really enjoy. So.
It was not intended to be funny, I have to say.
Oh, sorry.
It was supposed to be deadly serious. No, I don't know. When you get together, though, you can't help what happens, though, can you? You know, it's like yourselves. It just, the chemistry that you have is what it is. And if you're enjoying something, you just let it happen.
That's right. And I think the best podcasts are when you have got that natural flow. I mean, Laurie and I, we try to plan what we're going to say, and we have a sort of rough sort of outline, but you can't learn it off by heart. You have to sort of just, you know, speak as it comes, or it doesn't work, you know.
Absolutely. Simon's mentioned one that I've never heard of. 372 pages we'll never get back.
No, I don't know.
I've never heard that.
So 372 pages we'll never get back. Have you ever seen the TV program Mystery Science Theatre 3000? Which is basically, Rob, what For Your Reconsideration does to movies. Kind of, it does that. 372 pages we'll never get back is two guys that will pick a book. The first one I remember listening to was Dan Brown's Digital Solitude. And they basically just tear it to pieces, line by line by line. And it's brutal. As a writer, it's fascinating to listen to. You think, I do that all the time, or I use those adverbs, I use that, blah, 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 blah. But it's just hilarious. And they tend to do the books like Stephanie Meyer's, Ernest Cline, Dan Brown, as I say. But the latest one, which has just started this week, is on a cozy crime about quilting, which I just can't wait to hear what they have to say. So 372 pages we'll never get back. I seriously recommend.
Well, I've just made a promise in the chat that I'll put a list of all these together, so and put it out on Twitter in the next couple of days. And I know you're not going to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Worst guest you've ever had?
Oh, couldn't possibly.
Lauren might tell me.
Actually,
no, I don't think we've had a worst guest. We're quite new, I think. So,
Laurie, I think
it's always so amazing.
I think it's us. Do you know the one episode we did?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Where it was just us. Yeah, our ratings went.
Yeah, when it was just us talking about our publication journey, which my agent, Amanda, who I think is watching this, she said that was really good and she really enjoyed that one. But we had the lowest views for that one. So we obviously are our worst guests. So.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a disgrace, Rob.
This is usually the bit where we talk about it and then we edit it later to take out certain names, isn't it, Vic?
Yeah, but we're live, so...
Thank you for the reminder.
Don't go there, Rob.
No. No, there've been a couple of guests where I would never say... we've never had a bad guest. I'm just talking about Blood Brothers here. We've never had a bad guest. But we've had a couple of guests that we've had to get into it. You know, it's taken a bit of breaking down.
Warming up.
Get into a bit of warming up, a little bit of warming up, and a couple of a couple of guests I've been a little bit terrified of, possibly.
I know one of these. Yeah, I know which one.
Yeah, a little bit, but no. Above all, I mean, it's just nice to make contact with these people. I mean, we're very lucky, you know, and most authors are really receptive to coming on and talking about what it is that they do. So yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Conversely, what I'd really love to know is your favourite guests that you've had. Can you say that?
Our very first guest was S.J. Watson.
Yes.
We thought we'd start big, and that was lovely having him as our first guest. He was great.
Yeah, we were so nervous as well for that as well, and actually at the end of our podcast, we always do this thing where we say, thanks for watching in suspense. And we try and time it. And because it was our first one, we were like, oh, come and do it with us. And yeah, you should have seen Steve's face. It was like, in suspense. We just didn't want to be, it was awful. I feel sorry I dragged him into it. He was an amazing guest.
He was brilliant. He was talking about his latest novel, Final Cut. So it was great. It was a really fascinating interview. So I think that was one of my, I've loved them all, but that was one of my favourites.
He's joining us on Bay Tales next month with Anna Bailey.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, he was lovely. I feel sorry for him that it was our first podcast.
What a way to get going, though. Flipping heck. Amazing.
And Emma Curtis says Susie Lyons was a really good one.
Susie Lyons was
She
great.
was brilliant.
Yeah. And well, they've all been good. I mean, we had Nadine Matheson on last week talking about the Jigsaw Man, and that was fascinating. And there's some really sort of amazing tales she had from when she was a criminal solicitor and everything, and how that sort of informed her writing. We've had, and Tracy Buchanan, who runs the Savvy Authors Snug. She was very interesting as well, wasn't she, Laurie? She does a lot to support writers. So.
Yeah, I think you get such a different variety of people on, don't you? And they all bring something different, and it's always so fascinating. I'm writing little post-its down as we're talking to people. So I always feel like I'm learning the most from my podcasts.
Rob, do you have a favourite guest?
Yeah, I do. I think he did it with maybe 4 words with me. Because he's absurdly talented. Chris Whitaker is absurdly amazing. And We Begin at the End is just one of the greatest novels I think I've ever read, seriously. And it's the fact that it's doing so well as it is. I mean, I saw it on a billboard I didn't personally see it, but I saw that it was on a billboard in Times Square and all this kind of stuff. It's so great. Mm-hmm. But when he was on Blood Brothers with us, he said, I asked him something about writing, and he said, what do you guys think? And it was like, oh my God, you don't need to, you were fine, bud. You do what you're doing. And it was just that, like, kind of, he was so personable and so friendly and so nice. And he's got no idea, I don't think, how brilliant he is.
But also, I mean, that book is just so phenomenal that just...
yeah. I think on the podcast, I said to him, you make me sick, Chris Whitaker.
Brilliant. Oh, Rob. I was going to say something. I tell you who you got on, or sounded like you got on really well with, was Mike Craven, M.W. Craven. It just sounded like it was an absolute hoot. That there was probably a lot of drink involved. Yeah,
I think because I've had a drink with Mike Craven before. So, like if you've got a pre-established rapport, that is good. But it's not essential at all. When Stu Turton came on, it was like within a couple of seconds, like, oh, we'll get on with this guy. This is great, and you sort of know that very quickly with somebody. And and it's so great. How great is it that we can even talk about this? That, like, so I know that at weekends we usually record on a Sunday night or maybe a Monday night, if depending on scheduling and stuff. And it's so great at the end of a weekend. Like, I know that, oh my God, I get to hang out with an amazing author, so we get really excited. Chris McDonald, who I know is here tonight, is amazing at booking the authors. He just like dives in, and as soon as he sees a little follow somewhere, he's like straight into the DMs, and he's gotten booked. So I know that this September, I can only remember 3, but I know we're going from Mick Herron to Adrian McKinty straight into Russ Thomas, and we're soon following up with, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it, but Don Winslow's following up very soon after that. And it's like, how have you done this, for a start? But also, oh my God, I cannot wait to have a chat with those people and have a beer with them.
I'm waiting for Chris McDonald to write in the chat, like, Rob, you were really not meant to tell people. But okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm expecting but I couldn't hold on to it because, that is exciting.
I think a pattern is emerging here that Rob puts his foot in it occasionally.
Yeah. Why do you think we've done here, Leslie?
Yes.
He says you're allowed for now. Leslie and Lauren, how do you book your guests?
Do you want to answer that, Lauren, or shall I?
Yeah, well, we it's a bit 50-50. So we're quite fortunate that we get emails from publicists saying, would you like to interview these people? And then the other half of it is that we sit down at the start before a series and plan out what we'd like to talk about. And then we say, well, who would we really like to talk to that about with? And we're like, oh, let's see if they wouldn't mind doing it. So we've got, and our next series, we're talking about film and TV rights, which is something I can't talk about, but I'm looking forward to learning about it. And I said, oh, I'd love to have Tim Logan. So I messaged him, and he's going to come on, which is great. So it's sort of about 50-50 that we get some guests coming to us and others we ask. So far, everyone's been really lovely.
Got a couple of questions in here for you. So Keith Young, who won our book earlier for his lovely review on our website, says, you all look as if you were enjoying this evening, but are you? Or is it just something you have to do?
This evening? Oh, I love doing things like this.
Yeah, this is so cool.
It's a great thing to do. I mean, yeah, no, it's lovely. That's one of the things that's one of the positives of this whole horrible year that we've had, really. I think this explosion in Zoom meetings and online events, which, you know, even if we go back to real festivals, which we will, obviously we are, but this sort of thing will continue in some form or other. Thank goodness. I think they're absolutely great. No, I love them.
That's the thing. I mean, we might meet once a year at Harrogate or something like that, and I might see Rob a couple of extra times if he came to Newcastle, but wouldn't see each other as regularly as we do, I don't think. And it is nice to feel connected. I'm going to move on to writing, and I've got a lovely question from Mandy Mitchell, who would like to know, do you always plan your stories or do you go with the flow? Leslie.
Oh, me. Okay. Do I plan them? I'm a bit of a planner and a pantser. I like to know where I have an opening scene usually. I like to know the ending and a couple of the points along the way. But the rest of it is a sort of journey of discovery. I tend to find that once I've written half of the novel, that's when I start doing most of my planning, because I've got a rough idea what kind of novel it's going to be. And that's the time when I'm usually pulling my hair out and getting frustrated and thinking, oh no, it's not working. It's, you know, nothing's gonna work. But that's when I need to start, you know, doing a spreadsheet and just sort of, or even a diagram or post-it notes on the wall, anything, and starting to sort of map it all out, really. But so yeah, a bit of both.
Excellent. Lauren?
I am an obsessive planner, and I plan and I plan and I plan. So I've got a new book I'm just started, so I'm going to see if I can very carefully move around. So this is what my wall looks like at the moment.
Ooh.
That's sort of 3 days into planning a book. So yeah, I'm crazy planner, and I like to have every scene completely planned so I know what I'm writing, and then I just write it as quickly as humanly possible. So I'm quite obsessive.
Excellent. And Rob Parker?
I've never planned properly before. I think I've got a scene at the beginning that I want to start from, and then I think of a scene at the end I want to get to, and then I just let the two connect. But I changed recently, actually, just for one book. Didn't plan Blackstoke in any way, but the sequel to Far From the Tree, I was so worried because it's a sequel, and I know it's a trilogy, it's a contracted trilogy. So I know that I've got to get to a certain point to start the third book. So I was so hung up on where I had to get to that I did. And would you believe it? It's like one I prepared at home, isn't it? So I actually planned the whole thing. Yeah. And it was invaluable. And I'd never done that before. I think that's it's my eighth official book, 12th unofficial book. And yeah, I've never done that before, and it was ace. Really enjoyed it, actually. I don't know whether I'll do it again, but yeah, it's good.
I'm not a plotter, and I've got myself in all sorts of spider's webs, so I'm looking at good ways of plotting. Anyway, so Leslie, we started with The Rumour. Did that come out of the Curtis Brown course that you did?
No, I didn't do Curtis Brown. I did.
You did Faber.
That doesn't matter. They're both the sort of,
What a
you know,
day.
they're the two well-known ones, aren't they? So people probably do mix them up. No, I did the Faber Academy. So no, I wasn't writing The Rumour when I was doing the Faber Academy. I was writing a completely different novel in a completely different genre. I sounded a bit posh then, didn't I? Genre. I was writing a sort of a gentle comedy, really. But I didn't seem to get on terribly well with that. I mean, the people in the group loved it, but when I used to pitch it to agents, oh, it was just, I've humiliated myself so many times in front of agents on those pitch and agent days. And I remember telling one agent, because he said, oh, I'm not interested in comedy because it's too subjective. And I said, oh, well, it's not that funny. And I thought, oh, no, that's not how you pitch a comic novel, is it, to a literary agent? That's not, you know, can you imagine how cringeworthy that was? So I wasn't writing a Rumour. A completely different one, and I didn't really get an agent until about 3 or 4 years after I'd done the course. So yeah.
Excellent. And what provoked The Rumour then? Was it an idea, a conversation, or?
It was. I think I actually heard a similar rumour. I heard a rumour about a notorious
Wow.
person. I won't say who. We've probably all heard of this person. You know, they killed a child when they were a child, and I heard a rumour that this person was living in my neighbourhood where I was living at that time. And I remember just thinking, oh, it's probably just a rumour. But it got me thinking. It got me looking at houses and thinking, how would I know if that was a safe house or not? I wouldn't, would I? And just made me think about that whole business of someone trying to assimilate into a new community, you know, under a new identity. It just fascinated me. And it happened when I was writing it. It happened to be the 50-year anniversary of the Mary Bell case and the 25-year anniversary of the the John Venables and the Martin Thompson, Robert Thompson, the James Bulger case. So those things all sort of tied in really and were percolating in my strange little brain.
I was going to say talking of strange little brains, but that sounds awful. Lauren, you talked about how you've always had quite a dark mind. Where did One Step Behind come from?
One Step Behind. I don't know how to say where it came from really. I think I really wanted to. When I wrote The Perfect Betrayal, poor Tess in that is a very depressed character. She's struggling with grief and everything goes very wrong for her. So I knew that I wanted my next female character to be really kick-ass, which is when I had this idea for Jenna, and she's a doctor, but also a mother, and she really just had so much focus. And then I just thought, well, what is the worst thing I can do to this woman? And how can I make her as horrible as possible? And how can I get a story out of that? So I think I started with Jenna and then went from there really. So that's how it started.
And Rob, I know that you've said recently you're very keen on writing kick-ass women.
Yeah. Since it's not since having girls, but certainly having strong young women in my life who I want to feel like they can achieve everything on this planet. What kind of dad would I be if I didn't write strong women? So I'm not saying I get it right all the time, but I try my hardest to write the strongest, most kick-ass women I possibly can. And Far From the Tree and Blackstoke were sort of like, as I was writing them, I was so almost incensed with this that the women took over, just absolutely took over, and for the better. I just loved it, and I've had a brilliant time writing those two books, and now I just want to take those characters and do all sorts with them, really. Kind of, I don't know what I can say. Spoilers and all that, and contractual stuff.
Just
so useless.
I know you were.
Why I get in trouble all the time? Seriously.
So Lauren, you've read Blackstoke, and I know Leslie, you were reading Blackstoke. Have you finished it?
I haven't finished it yet because I've had quite a few other sort of things to do. But I've just reached the really, a really frightening bit. Honestly, it's scaring me. It's scaring me shitless, Rob. That could be a quote for it, couldn't it? It scared me.
It can be. I know. It was never supposed to be like this because, like, I wanted to write a mystery, and it just got sick, and I couldn't stop it from being sick. And like, you know, when you've got an idea, and we've all been there, where you just have to follow it. So all you can do really is just follow that idea, and it starts to pour out of you. And yeah, I was really lucky that Sean at Red Dog said, "Oh, just keep going with that. Let that do whatever it needs to do." So
You write so well, though. I love the characters.
Really well.
Brilliant.
well, no, it's you know, I'm like, I get that thing as well. You know, like, I can't believe I get to speak to Lauren North and Leslie Cara tonight. So no, it's the truth. Seriously, it's the truth. I'm a massive fan of the genre at heart. So you know, yeah, it's mega to me. And I was really intimidated of Vic when I first met her as well.
Please do, Lauren.
How long did it take you to write Blackstoke?
I wrote the first half about 3 or 4 years ago, and I didn't know what to do with it because you get so hung up on genre, don't you? You know, like, right, I've got to try and fit in with the genre that I'm already in. And at that point, I was writing about the ex-soldier Ben Bracken, and I thought, like, I don't really have a place for this at the moment. And then fast forward to last October, and it was like, hang on a minute, I've got like half a book just sitting there, and if someone says yes to me, I'll finish that, and then we can bring it out, and that'll be that. So I sent the first half to Sean Coleman on the Blood Brothers podcast, and he immediately said, I want it, which was great. But I'm such an idiot that I subbed it to him under a different name from my personal email account. I forgot that part. So he knew it was me. I thought I was being dead cool and smart, you know, like, yeah, he'll never work that out. So he got this manuscript, half manuscript, from a Bob Q. Creasy, which was there was about 35,000 words in it, and he said, you know, he sent me one back saying, like, yes, Bob, we'd like to publish it, and he said, can we get it done for March? Can we bring it out in March? And I thought, like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I've got a window, so I can squeeze it in. So I wrote the second half between October and, it was last day of October and 11th of December last year. And so sent it to him, and then we edited it the first couple of months of this year. So I think in the grand scheme of things, that's a short period of time. But it meant we could be really flexible and fluid and stuff, which I've really enjoyed the process. Really enjoyed it. And I'm, you know, when people say, like, when Lauren, you've been amazing with your feedback on this one. But when people get back in touch and say they're absolutely horrified, part of me is very sorry, but most of me is really happy.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy. I'd be really happy.
Yeah, because you know you're doing something right, you know.
Well, you're getting a reaction. You're not just getting a fine or an okay, are you? It's having an impact. Lauren, how long would it take you usually? So you've just started a new novel now. When would you?
Well, yeah, I'm just planning it. So I'm starting after Easter.
Okay.
So how long does it take me to write? So I write quite quickly because it's all I do. So I normally write the book I've just written. It took me about 62 days to write the first draft, and then because I'm so obsessive, I have to keep good track, so that's how I know it's 62 days. And then I edit it, which is about a month, and get feedback from beta readers. So about 3 months from start to finish before I send it to someone.
Fantastic. And Leslie, how about you?
Usually takes me about about 7 months to write my first draft, but because I sort of edit as I go, it's kind of more than a first draft. It's a polished first draft, but I think that takes about 7 months usually. Yeah, I'd like to be able to write quicker.
Oh, I think that sounds really nice. I think that sounds sensible, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that sounds. I wish I could write a bit more slower and a bit more edited, but I just get into this zone and then it's all out the window.
Because there's no like way. You never get told how to do it. It's just whatever way works for you, isn't it? And you know, there are books out there, aren't there, everywhere, saying, you know, this is a framework for how you can write a novel, and it's essentially it's just pointers until you get down and do it yourself and find out what works for you.
Yeah, every novel is different, isn't it? I mean, I found writing The Dare quite difficult because even though it was my third novel, it doesn't get any easier, does it? And also I was writing and doing a lot of the editing of that during lockdown one, and so that was really, I think that was really quite hard for me, and I had to rewrite the second half completely. But
I absolutely loved The Dare. I found it one of those books that you want everything else to stop around you so that you can just go back to it. It was this, actually, to be fair, it was the same with One Step Behind as well. Just wanted the world to stop so I could read. But The Dare, like, it's such an interesting idea in terms of you put this person in so many vulnerable positions. So she's pregnant, and then, you know, she's got this medical condition, and there's just all these, and then somebody from her past turns up, and there's just all these things, and the pressure builds and builds and builds. And where did that come from?
Gosh, I wish I could answer that. I mean, I don't know. I got the idea for the walk and the train because it was a similar thing that I used to do when I was when I was a young girl. I went on a walk across farmland with my best friend Dawn, and we used to go over an open crossing, and we used to get excited listening to the trains go by and watching the trains go by. And I think, you know, I must have, when I was thinking about my childhood and revisiting that walk with my friend, I think I must have heard a story on the news about a child being killed, because so many children sadly do die on level crossings, and I think those things just sort of came together, and I decided, as you said, she becomes pregnant. That's not really a spoiler because it sort of happens quite early, doesn't it? And she suffers from epilepsy, and I think that was, I mean, I don't suffer from epilepsy, but I thought that was a useful way to make her vulnerable in a way that she is not a vulnerable woman, you know, a vulnerable girl. She's quite strong, actually, but the epilepsy is what makes her vulnerable because it can ambush her at any time.
Yeah, it's a great. And can I ask all of you? So I know, Leslie, you've just said that you remember in your childhood and childhood walks along the railway and stuff. Do you take inspiration from your own experiences and your own memories and stuff, Lauren?
Yeah, definitely. So The Perfect Betrayal is set in this village where I live, and it came from the idea because I moved to a village thinking, oh, village life will be really wonderful, without really appreciating the fact that actually it's really isolating, and everyone's already got all their friends, and there's only a very small pool of people to become friends with. And it took me a really long time to make friends, having gone from being in London and Chelmsford, where there were loads of mums and babies everywhere, to this tiny village where there was hardly anybody. And I felt so isolated and alone. And that really became the start of The Perfect Betrayal. So I think, yeah, definitely my emotions and how I feel in certain situations create the books, I think, for me.
Great. Rob?
Fine. Yeah. Can I ask Lauren a question? Is that okay? Did you find it was it like a cathartic experience then to write it?
Yeah, it was. But it's quite harrowing, and I think I didn't realise until after I finished it how it drained me quite emotionally as well. That mother and child relationship as well. And being a mother with a child of the same age, it felt really close to my heart. And it's still a book that I feel very strongly about. So yeah, it was. But I think it wasn't until after I wrote it that I realised that it was coming from how I felt at the time, if that makes sense. I don't think I realised at the time how isolated and alone I was, but it took the book for me to realise that.
That's amazing. So it's like almost subconscious working things out in a way, you know. I love that because writing certainly for me was the same thing. It was catharsis, it was escape, and it was like living. But at the time when I first started doing it, I wasn't, you know. No, of course I was living, but you know, I wasn't doing anything. I was recuperating, you know, on the sofa with these knee surgeries. So that's amazing. No, Vic, to answer your question, I try never to write about stuff that's happened or people that I know or anything like that, because life is complicated enough. and without going, because you always get that thing, you know, like, especially because I also live in a smaller village, and you always get that thing like, are you writing about people? You're writing about them, you're writing about that person or anything like that. Like, I'm not writing about them, but I might have written about something they did, you know, something like that, you know, that kind of thing. So I always write about experiences and the way it made me feel, and try and put myself in the position of other people and how they might have felt. But no, I try to leave real life incident out of it.
And Leslie, other than your childhood walks along the railway, anything more?
In terms of being inspired for writing?
Of course, the rumour was also inspired by something that happened.
Yeah, and well, Who Did You Tell was inspired by an experience. You know, a member of my own family suffers from alcoholism and is I'd like to say a recovering alcoholic, but possibly they're not recovering. So I have experience of supporting somebody through that, and that was all sort of going on. They were having their particular crises during the time I was writing that, and I did not intend to write a book about alcoholism at all, but that sort of came into it. And I'd also just moved to a small seaside town, so the sea plays a big part in that novel as well. So yeah, ideas come from everywhere, don't they, really? But I don't particularly choose to write about things that have happened to me. I think sometimes ideas just come and you have to go with them. But like Rob says, when you live in a small place, you have to be very careful. I mean, one woman actually said, did an event in Frinton where I live, and one woman came up to me afterwards and she said, "Oh, I know who Liz is in your book. She's the lady that lives down my road," because I didn't realise that there's a lady with a long silver plait in the rumour, and there is in my hometown, and I had no idea. I'd never seen this woman. So there's a woman in my town who thinks she's in my book, and she isn't.
This might be a daft question, but did your relative read Who Did You Tell and sort of?
Possibly. They might have done. They might have done. They've
right.
It, no.
We do have one last question from Paul Short, who says, "Who do you use for your beta reading? Friends, family, companies?"
I'll go first.
Mm.
So I am really lucky to have met at Harrogate Festival a couple of years ago some fabulous authors who I've become really close with, and we chat every day now, and they are fantastic beta readers and fantastic editors, so I get my feedback from them. So Nikki Smith, who wrote Look What You Made Me Do, and Laura Pearson, who is a fantastic author who's, oh my god, I hope she doesn't watch this when I say I've forgotten the name of her book.
Nobody's Wife was one.
Yes, Nobody's Wife, and she's an amazing author, and Zoe Lee as well. It's just three fantastic authors, and I just get so much from them, from their feedback. So they're my beta readers. I'm really lucky.
That's lovely. Leslie, how about you?
Well, I belong to I've got a writing group in Frinton. I don't actually participate now because I've been so busy this last year that I've actually dropped out, but we're still very good friends, and we do critique each other's work. So they're the people I would go to for beta reading. Yeah.
Oh, fab. And Mr. P?
Very similar. I have I'm very lucky. Again, it's all born out of this lockdown, and essentially what you and Simon have done with VNAT Bay. Made some amazing friends through that, and I sort of involved in a few WhatsApp chats when if I finish something, I'll throw it out and say, "I finished this. Does anyone fancy a little look at it?" And someone will say yes, maybe, or whatever, So yeah, there's some, and it's moved on because it used to always be my mum. So we're going places.
I'm sure your mother will be delighted to hear that.
But my mum read Blackstoke, so
Well, I was going to come to that. Yes,
calls are never been the same again. So
his poor mum. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to all three of you for being such lovely guests. It's a pleasure to talk to you anytime, but you've been really honest and fun to chat to, and it's been really, really joyful today. So thank you very much for joining us. I think Mr. Buick's going to pop back on.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you.
Thank you. In the meantime, in our chat, quite a few people have messaged us saying how useful it is to hear from you guys. For wannabe writers, to hear how it works for you, what you do, your own experiences. And we are actually currently working on an event for authors who are just starting out. So I will remind you, we're on Twitter at Bay Tales. If you want to just keep an eye on that, and we'll put some stuff up there once we get stuff sorted. But again, you three, thank you so much for that.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. And thank you everyone for watching and commenting. It's been such an amazing evening.
It's been great. Thanks, everybody.
You guys, Simon and Vic, you're the best in the business. If there's anyone out there writing now who's in the chat, just go your own path, believe in yourself, don't ever give up. You're in charge, you do it, write whatever you want, have fun doing it, your writing will sparkle, and just keep believing in yourself, okay, please. We need more writers.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rob, Leslie, Lauren. So next week, next month, 28th of April, the next show, as I think has probably been discussed at various points during the evening, but we've got S.J. Watson, author of Before I Go to Sleep, Second Life, Final Cut, in conversation with Vic and Anna Bailey, the author of the earlier mentioned Tall Bones. So they'll be sharing their thoughts and experiences as a writer who's been in the business for 10 years, had his work turned into a Hollywood movie, and a first-time author who's getting incredible praise for a debut from some of the biggest names around, really. Plus, we've got Leah Middleton, who will be joining us to read from her debut novel, When They Find Her, which is also getting a lot of very high praise from those who've read it. And I'm going to start it this weekend. So,
me too. Yeah, so super excited, obviously. Again, Simon and I just want to say thank you. So tomorrow is the 1st of April. It is our 1-year anniversary from our first VNAT Bay show. And we have some lovely books to give away. But thank you to all of you for joining us tonight and every time. We're still used to saying every week, aren't we? Even though we're doing it. So massive thank you to the audience for joining us, to Kate Quinn for that brilliant reading, Linda Hill for that phenomenal book review. I think everybody, I reckon that book, The Last Bear, is going to be right up the charts later on today. And again, to Leslie Cara, Lauren North and Rob Parker, and our wonderful musician for the evening, Martin Stevenson. If you would like to donate to keep the lights on, please do visit Ko-Fi for us. But other than that, all I've got to say is thank you and good night. See you next time.
Take care. Bye.